Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here, got another Mastery Duel video for you, coming at you with some more Centurion. Well, I say some more, actually, the reason that I played this deck is because I don't think I covered it last season. Either way, it definitely feels like a while since we have covered Centurion, so I wanted to come back to it, even though there isn't a whole lot of new stuff going on with the deck. I think the only recent addition from recent packs here is actually the Snake Eyes Doomed Dragon in the extra deck. But otherwise, yeah, Centurion has gone pretty much the same as it has been for a little while now. Of course, there is some upcoming support at some point in the future. Don't know exactly when that'll drop. And that'll definitely be a nice and becoming, as time goes on, more and more needed boost for the deck. This is kind of one of those decks where I look at it and I'm like, yeah, it hasn't changed much in recent metas, despite the meta itself changing greatly. So of course you have to ask yourself, how does Centurion hold up? Is it still as good as it used to be? I think Centurion does feel a little bit weaker going into this meta. Before Fiendsmith stuff, I would have definitely labeled Centurion a tier 2 deck. Now I kind of want to call it a little more tier 3. Again, though, I think that once the upcoming wave support comes out, it'll definitely be back up to tier 2 category. It's kind of bordering around there anyway, but yeah, I think Centurion, in terms of its relative power level to the current meta, feels very reminiscent of Sword Soul in past metas. I think Centurion and Sword Soul are very similar in a lot of ways. They both have very simple combo lines that are still very efficient at what they do. Of course, obviously both synchro-based as well. And the Centurion deck, particularly over Sword Soul, has more room in the extra and main deck. It's a lot more streamlined of a combo line, which is really, really nice. It means you have room to play a ton of hand traps, as well as some kind of obscure extra deck stuff. So for the hand traps here, of course, we're going to be on Droll and Lockbirds. Any deck that has the room for a playset of this probably should be on. I don't know about necessarily a full playset. I mean, it just always varies from deck to deck, right? Like, take Blue Eyes, for example. Blue Eyes could probably fit a full playset of Droll and Lockbird, but not only does it have a bit of a tough time playing through Droll, I mean, obviously you're just going to use that on your opponent's turn anyway, but you definitely want to be probably maxing out on Veilers first, because Veiler, being a level 1 light spellcaster tuner, actually does matter for your deck. It's a lot of little things like that, you know, that can affect whether a deck actually wants to play a full playset of Droll or not. But we have room for that. We, of course, have room for Fulos, and Fulos isn't bad here because we can always simply send it from the hand to the graveyard off of stand-up Centurion if needed. Bestials. We have a lot of room for Bestials, and Centurion already likes playing Bestials because of the ability to make level 10 synchros that way. So, being able to play 5 Bestial level 6 Bestial monsters, you know, the hand trappy ones, is very, very nice. It's super, super good for this deck. You know, a lot of Centurion builds are actually on like a playset of Veiler, but I did want to prioritize Droll and Bestials first, just for being overall better meta calls. Although if I'm playing Crossout, I should arguably just be playing like 1 Veiler, 2 Imperm anyway, right? I feel like that would make a little bit more sense, but either way, I like keeping Centurion at a tight 40 cards. There are quite a few decks in Master Duel that you can pretty easily go over 40 with and you won't really feel the difference. I'm not convinced Centurion is one of them, just because you want to get to a good balance of both starters and hand traps. And I feel like when you're at 40, the deck has a pretty nice natural balance of that. Plus, like, if you're going to go over 40, I think it would be to prioritize playing more hand traps first, but then you would also want to just include more consistency buffing to make sure your ratios are alright. Like, I don't think going up to 42 to add 2 Bonfire to search Trudea makes a lot of sense. It just means that I'm going to draw more starters. Rather, I guess it means I'm going to draw starters more often than hand traps. If I were to add like 2 Bonfire, it'd probably be if I added like another 2 hand traps, right? And go up to like 44 cards or something. I mean, that's just like shotgunning math off the top of my head. That's not like finite ratios I would stick with, but I say keep it simple at 40, and you're going to be good with a deck like Centurion. Now, like I said too, for the extra deck, we have a lot of room to play around with stuff. As always, I'm not playing a second Blazar, but I'm on Quasar because it's basically the same thing. Blazar is technically better, but I don't want to craft a second one, and you really don't summon the second Blazar / Quasar that often anyway, so I think playing Quasar here is fine. Second Legatia, not needed. I never go into the second copy of this card. Honestly, even simple stuff like Artemis, I mean, I understand why it's here, right? It's so you can link it off something like Primera and then make a Little Knight to use the first effect, but that's so highly situational. Never have come close to summoning Artemis personally when playing this deck. That really just goes to speak to how much room this extra deck has, though, to play around with stuff. So Snake Eyes Doom Dragon is our new addition, as I touched upon earlier. The idea here being that if you have a bunch of your Centurion monsters kind of quote-unquote trapped in the back row because their effects got negated or they've already special summoned this turn, you could potentially send them to go into Doom Dragon, which can not only act as removal, but it's a level 8 non-tuner, so when combined with, Primera, you can make one of your level 12s. It is in theory pretty good, but if you're seeing this and being like, oh no, now I gotta craft Doom Dragon for my Centurion deck, you don't have to. It's not, you could definitely get away without it. It's completely fine. I guess if I were to put other cards in the extra deck, besides stuff like Doomed Dragon or Second Legatia or Second Blazar/Quasar, I mean, honestly, it's stuff you're just never gonna summon. You could think about more level 8 synchros that you'll never summon. You could think about more level 10 synchros that you'll never summon. You could play an IP Masquerade in your extra deck that you'll never summon. So on and so forth. And honestly, in this meta where Kashtira Unicorn's play rate is at an all-time high, having additional copies of stuff like Legatia and Blazar, or I guess in my case Quasar instead of a second Blazar, is actually not bad for the ability to lessen the impact of a Unicorn. If you own a second Auxilia, might not be a bad idea to play that either, honestly. But I mean, to be fair, they'll probably just go after Crimson Dragon at that point anyway. Maybe even play a second copy of that if you're really, really scared of Unicorn. I really don't think that's necessary, though. I'm just, again, pointing out how much room you have in this extra. Anyway, I've yapped enough about this deck, especially for one that hasn't really changed much. Let's just break down the list and then... Yeah, and then we'll just get into these games here. So we're on 3 Droll Lockbird, 2 Maxi, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 3 Centurion Primera, 3 Centurion Trudea, 3 Molcharmy Fuelos, 1 Bestial Magnum Hut, 2 Bestial Druid Swarm, 2 Bestial Baldrake, 2 The Bestial Lubellion, 1 Centurion Gargoyle 2, 1 Nibiru the Primal Being, 3 Stand Up Centurion, 1 Branded Regained, 2 Call by the Grave, 1 Cross-Out Designator, 3 Emblema Oath, 3 Infinite Permanents, and finally 1 Centurion Phalanx, and there's our main deck. For the extra, we're on 1 Snake Eyes Doom Dragon, 1 Chaos Archfiend, 1 Baron de Fleur, 1 Bestial Dissipator, 1 Chaos Angel, 1 Shooting Quasar Dragon, 1 Cosmic Blazar Dragon, 1 Red Supernova Dragon, 1 Crimson Dragon, 2 Centurion Legatia, 1 Centurion Auxilia, 1 Superstar Slayer Typhon Sky Crisis, 1 Artemis the Magistus Moon Maiden, and finally 1 SP Little Knight. That's gonna do it for our list. Let's check out these games. Alright, so as was the case in yesterday's video, and will be for probably the next week or so, these are Duelist Cup games. As such, I can't double check my opponent's deck ahead of time, but it's all good. We're gonna be going first here. And we have Emblema Oath, so we are good to go. This is one of our many one-card starters for this deck. If you open Emblema Oath or Stand-Up Centurion or Primera or Trudea, just one of those is enough to go into your full Centurion combo. Opponents could try to Maxi in response to our Emblema Oath, but we're going to simply call by here. This would not have been an efficient use of Maxi anyways. Our opponent played into literally everything. They played into Gamma, Troll Tactics, Thrust, and Talent, and didn't even guarantee a draw in the process of doing so. I will continue to die on this hill. Maxi/Fuelos being shotgunned at weird times is the #1 misplay that players very consistently make in Master Duel, and I will continue to point out every time it's a misplay. Anyway, we're going to go into our Auxilia here. Also worth noting, this is a mistake that I always make with Emblema Oath. Don't put Primera in the spell trap. You want to put Trudea, because as you just saw me do, you then go summon Trudea off her own effect, then Trudea F, put herself, and then Primera, and then summon Primera, and this will give you enough bodies in the spell trap zone. If you Emblema Oath and just straight up put Trudea, or not Trudea, Primera, sorry. If you Emblema Oath and put straight up Primera in the spell trap, you will not end on enough bodies to go into full combo. I make that misplay all the time. Thankfully, I remembered not to do it here, but I think I did it in the last Centurion video, actually. Either way, we're going to use Auxilia to grab the Phalanx and then set it during the end phase, placing the Primera in the spell trap. So, alright, our opponent's going to go into Mathmech Circular, dumping the Sigma. Alright, so here we're going to summon Trudea and Primera. I typically like going into these as early as possible, just to get the Crimson Dragon online ASAP before my opponent's able to get like a negate on board or something. Here against Mathmech, normally if I want to play it safe, I'll just go into Cosmic Blazar. But I know Mathmech well enough to know that the Red Supernova effect is going to be very, very devastating here. The ability to banish my opponent's whole field, especially when they use something like, why can't I remember the card's name? Transcode Talker. When they go to use that, banishing the board then will be very nice. But before that even happens, I'm going to use the Bestial Druiswarm in hand against my opponent's Sigma in Graveyard. It is rough playing Mathmech in this meta when Bestials are so popular. Now, I've actually summoned 5 times on my opponent's turn, meaning they have the ability to nib here. I'm going to use Red Supernova to banish itself and Circular. For a couple of reasons. The most obvious being that, of course, Supernova gets to dodge the nib here and come back during the end of my next turn if I end up needing it for that long. But also by banishing Circular here, I'm keeping it out of the graveyard in case they're holding on to or end up searching later Equation. If it had gone to the graveyard, they could, in theory, Equation back Circular, summon a Mathmech, and grab Superfactorial. So, ending up with a big token here. Druiswarm got sent, so we get to send to their nib. They're going to triple attack and take control of my token here, which is completely fine. We still have the Phalanx face down. My plan here is to simply use Phalanx, or was to use Phalanx against something like Splash Mage or Transcode. But then I remembered, oh yeah, I have my own nib in hand. And look, they did actually have Equation. I actually totally forgot they actually had Equation here. Alongside Subtraction! So look, I mean, obviously, again, banishing Supernova would have been the right play regardless, but, like, dodging, keeping Circular out of the graveyard actually super mattered here. Well, I mean, kind of mattered. It's not going to matter anyway, because I'm just going to nib them, right? But, yeah. Still worth noting. Their nib token is very, very small, of course, because of the fact that the nib token being tributed doesn't actually contribute to the stats. Now, my opponent actually conceded before we could do anything, but reminder that the stand-up Centurion field spell, if I can find it here. Yeah, here we go. Stand-up Centurion can only use this effect during the main phase, during your main phase if this card is activated this turn. So that's why I searched up follow-up stand-up Centurion to be able to go into follow-up plays, right? But yeah, it was definitely not an issue to secure lethal from that point, especially because we can actually just get rid of the token with Centurion Phalanx as well. Meaning we could have just pretty easily gone for lethal, and even if not lethal, Red Supernova would still come back during our end phase. So cool stuff. All right, there's our first duel. Let's check out the next one. My next opponent. I feel like what deck they're playing is on the tip of my tongue. I remember their username. I remember playing this game last night. I just don't remember what deck they're on here. We'll see in a moment, I guess. Either way, we're going to take the first turn, and we got Primera, Trudea, and Emblema Oath. So I'm going to lead with normal summon Primera to try to bait out some interaction. And sure enough, they are going to imperm it. That's amazing because we have the Emblema Oath, and Emblema Oath is not only a starter, but it's also an extender. We can use Emblema Oath to simply set stand-up Centurion directly from our deck. I'll then activate. And here we can just discard Trudea because we're just going to put a copy in the spell trap zone anyway. So Trudea the spell trap, placing Gargoyle in the spell trap, which we can then summon. Sink for 12. Going to go for Auxilia here. Hoping my opponent doesn't have another Veiler / Imperm, but I think they do actually. Yep, they do have a second Imperm. That Imperm against Auxilia is rough for Centurion because it not only means that we don't get the Phalanx search, we also don't get to summon Primera during the end phase, which means we don't get to do our, going into a level 12 synchro during their turn. So all we have against this opponent is Call By. It's a pretty scary place to be. Oh, it's Melodious. That's right. This is a pure... I mean, it seemed pure. It might not be. They might be splashing another engine, but all I saw from this opponent were Melodious cards, so I'm assuming it's a pure Melodious deck. Opening with the, I believe, Concerto is the field spell. Refrain F to add Soprano. We do have our Call By face down. It's not nothing, but it's not going to be a lot here. They're fusing into the Flowering Etoile. Now, as Baka goes to activate the effect to try to bring back Soprano, I'm going to use the... As soon as I get a chance here, yep. I'm going to use Call By's effect on the Baka here. Alright, so the Baka will not be reviving Soprano. Refrain does still get to place itself in the spell trap, and then Concerto draws a card. Alright, now they get to add another Concerto from deck to hand. Refrain F to buff the Flowering Etoile, but they don't battle over the Auxilia. I was really confused by that. I guess they wanted to put it back in the extra deck instead of putting it into my graveyard? Which would make sense if I had Phalanx, but I don't. I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter either way. They basically accomplished the same thing, but... Alright, now here we have a Branded Regain to accompany our Druiswarm. But I'm going to start with Trudea effect to place Primera in the spell trap, just see if they do anything in response. I basically need to bait out the Flowering Etoile effect here. The quick effect says you can banish any number of Melodious to return that number of face-up cards that the opponent controls to the hand. Actually, let me read Trudea real quick. You place this card you control in one Centurion, monster from your hand or deck, so Trudea into your spell trap zone. Also, you can... Okay, so that is a part of the effect. It's not like part of the cost. Okay, I see. Alright, so summoning Primera here, adding the Phalanx, and I was really, really anxious about them activating Flowering Etoile on the Primera as soon as it was summoned, but thankfully they don't. So I get to sink for 10 right away. I'm just going to make a Baron de Fleur here, because I know they're going to go for the Flowering Etoile effect in response to the Druiswarm. I can simply negate with the Baron, and then now I don't have to deal with this thing anymore. Like, yeah, I don't get the Omni-Negate of the Baron, but... Again, at least I don't have to deal with their Etoile anymore. Flowering Etoile effect is going to summon Baka from the extra deck. Now, Baka is threatening to summon a Melodious from the deck, except you'll remember that we used Call By on Baka last turn. I'm very, very glad that I did that. I wasn't really considering that they would summon Baka off Flowering Etoile. I was cognizant of the Flowering Etoile effect, but for some reason, maybe I thought it only said deck. I didn't read the extra deck part. I mean, either way, though, I'm very glad to not have to deal with the Baka. Because the thing is, not only would it have summoned a Melodious monster from the main deck, but also if I had tried to use Baron Pop Baka, or just even battled over it, it would have revived a Melodious monster like the Flowering Etoile from the graveyard. And that would have been extremely annoying. So, very glad we didn't have to deal with that. Didn't mean to click OK there. But, yeah, anyway, we have one last duel to take a look at. So let's finish off with that one. Okay, heading into our last duel for this video. Let's see what we've got here. Alright, we're taking the first turn yet again. And yeah, we have Trudea and Emblema Oath, so starter and extender, as well as multiple hand traps. Cannot complain about a hand like this. Trudea for Primera, Primera to summon, Primera F for the field spell, Stand Up Centurion. We can go Stand Up Centurion here. I'm just going to pitch the Emblema Oath, because it's like, we don't need it at this point. Our combo line's already going through. Summoning the Gargoyle, sinking for the Auxilia. I'm sure you all know the whole song and dance by now. Alright, let's see if they've got the Veiler or Imperm, and they don't. So we are going to get to play out our full combo line here, adding the Gargoyle 2, and then Auxilia to add Phalanx. Going to set Imperm and Phalanx, and of course during the end phase, Auxilia will put Primera in the spell trap. Alright, so we're looking like we got a pretty good setup here. Let's see what our opponent does. Leading with Cashier Unicorn. So here's the thing. I'm going to go for Primera and Trudea. I know my opponent's going to activate Unicorn's effect. I'm probably just going to have to use Imperm on it. But the Super Poly here was brutal. Pitching Keldo tells me that it's probably Tearlaments, right? Yeah, this Super Poly was just like absolutely devastating going into the Mud Dragon of the Swamp here. Now Stand Up Centurion resolves without effect, and Primera's just going to add another Stand Up. They're going for Unicorn F. I decided to go for Imperm here anyway, because of mainly, yeah, the Mud Dragon here. Like, I'm not going to really get a meaningful imperm on something like Kikolo as long as Mud Dragon's up anyway, so might as well save my extra deck here. So I'm going to go for Scream and then Rhino Heart. We do still have Druid Swarm and Phalanx, so I'm not feeling completely hopeless here. And so I'm going to mill Havnus with Rhino Heart. They milled a Soliac off Scream, so they get to search here. We're going to go Druid Swarm on Havnus, of course. We're just going to go Keldo on Havnus, and I think the Rhino Heart as well. That's completely fine with me. Alright, so those go back to the deck. Druid Swarm does not get summoned. Soliac adds Shiren. And then Havnus resolves without effect. I'll use Droll here, because why not? They might mill more tier cards that search, pitching Fabled Lurry for Shiren. So here I decide to use Phalanx against Rhino Heart. Here's my reasoning for this. My Phalanx targets, first and foremost, right? This card does target. My opponent has Mud Dragon up calling Dark. I'm like, okay, if they go these two into Redoer, Redoer is Dark, so I can't use Phalanx against Redoer. Also, Redoer just chain its own effect anyway. So I feel like my only real hope here is to use Phalanx on the Rhino Heart. Plus, even if they do go into Redoer, that'll keep my opponent from being able to make Kiklos, because they won't have a second Tearlaments monster, was my thought process here. But actually what they're just going to do is go into Moon of Closed Heaven. And then I was like, oh yeah. Oh yeah, this is an option, because now they just go into Fiendsmith's Requiem. At this point they go Requiem into Engraver. Now they can link off Engraver with the Shiren, after they use, you know, the Engraver F on my Primera. And this will make Sequence. Now what they can do is just go Sequence for Lacrima. And then Lacrima, summon Engraver. And you're probably seeing where this is going. It's where, like, every Fiendsmith line goes. They can still make... Wait for it. They can still make the Beatrice! So, yeah, Beatrice mills the other Shiren. And then they'll be able to make us... Kikolos off of that. So yeah, I thought the Phalanx was enough to maybe dodge Kikolos coming out, but it's not really that's going to be the case. Milling Tier Cash, and they get to mill a lot here, but if they don't go for Fairy Tale Snow, then I can still live through this turn, I think. There's Mudora. And then Meta Noise to add back Havnus, but they still only have, well, with the Engraver, they have 7,800 points of damage. It's still 200 short. So I was thinking, like, okay, live by 200. I'm down for this. We'll try to come back. It's probably not going to happen, but key point is we'll try. And then I remembered right as it happened. I was like, oh, right. Fiendsmith has a burn effect. As my opponent goes into SP Little Knight, most importantly, they are linking off their Lacrima, which means they can put back Engraver and inflict 1,200 points, which is sufficient enough to finish me off here. So, GG opponent, very well played. And unfortunately, despite going off uninterrupted, not a lot I could do against, particularly that Super Poly. It was very brutal there, but still a good game, of course, nonetheless. Alright, that is going to do it for this one. So thank you for watching. As always, got to give an extra special thanks if you're still watching the video right now. Watching towards the very end is one of the best ways to support the channel. So I thank you each and every one who is still watching. But like I said, that is going to be the end of it. So let's just move on now to our outro. Hey everybody, Hexlex here. Just want to give you a huge thanks for watching all the way to the very end of the video. Believe it or not, that is actually one of the best ways that you can support the channel, is by watching the videos in their entirety. But there are many ways in which you can support the channel if you are so interested. The names that you're seeing on screen here, I gotta give an extra special thanks to, because these are people who have chosen to either become a member on YouTube, which if you're interested you can do as well via the join button next to the subscribe button down there, or have signed up over on Patreon and become members there. Link to that is going to be in the description below. Without the support that is being offered by, again, all the people that you're seeing on screen right here, I would not be able to take the time to dedicate to uploading daily YouTube videos. So thank you so very much. But there are also other ways you can support as well. Again, link to the description below. If you like my deck tracker that you'll see in a lot of my videos, the Untapped Companion, you can download that for free, and if you use my affiliate link down there, then that also goes a long way towards supporting the channel. That's, again, free. So is subscribing here on YouTube. That's also free and a huge way to support. You can also check out Twitch, once again linked in the description below. Following and subscribing over there will not only support as well, but also give you notifications of when I go live if you want to catch some of the live streams. But really, no matter how you choose to support, it all adds up and it all definitely means the world. So thank you, each and every one of you. For now, this is Hexlex. I'm going to be signing out, but more than that, I'm hoping that you have a fantastic day.